As I said, John has been here with us before presenting on other topics. Most of us in the area know him from his web presence. He's got livingfoods.com and discountjuicers.com. In fact, I think in 1999 I bought something from you before I'd ever met you. I met you like a week later. So he's quite a staple of our local raw community, and we're lucky to have him, and he's fought to get this Raw Health Expo coming this next week. So I'm excited to hear about that, and I'm also excited to hear about how to stay raw while traveling. John, come on up.
I'd really prefer not to use the mic if everybody can hear me. Is that all right? Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, so today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite things, raw foods. No, I'm just kidding, traveling. Well, both of my favorite things, actually, probably traveling is second to my interest in health and raw foods. Many people may know me or may not know me. I got into raw foods because of my failing health when I was in my 20s. To make a long story short, I'll just basically sum it up. I had spinal meningitis. I was in the hospital, Kaiser Santa Rosa actually, and the doctor said I might not make it out alive. So luckily through higher powers, because at that point the doctors couldn't do anything for me. It was just the higher powers that I came through that experience, and here today, and because of that I needed to find out why that happened. Well, the doctors told me that I have basically complement immune deficiency, which is basically a weak immune system, and they blamed it on my genes. So I had to find the right way to live. And for me, I found raw foods to build my immune system, and the rest was history. So I've been doing this since 1995. It's been really important to me because I see if I eat raw, I'm alive, and if I don't eat raw, I'm not alive, right? So you have to have a strong reason to stay raw, so that's my reason. If, I could end up in the hospital and the doctor telling me again, that you might not make it out of here, and that's not supposed to hopefully happen until you're really old. And or never. So that's my story. So I need to stay raw while I was traveling, and that's one of my other favorite things to do is traveling. So I need to basically just come up with ways to do this. So I've been traveling around the world to places like Iceland. So people are like, "Wow, how'd you stay all raw in Iceland?" Going to somewhere like Fiji is staying raw. It's fairly easy. Or I was in Cyprus and actually in trees picking caropods that were just the sweetest caropods. Actually, I had one yesterday, actually. My person that cleans my house was going through and cleaning my house, and she's like, "What's this?" And it was in a little baggie, it's like the last caropod I brought back from Cyprus. So I ate it and I saved the seeds so I could plant a carob tree that's really sweet. They have sweeter carob over there than we get here. So anyways, I've traveled all over, and I want to share some of the things that I've learned along the way with you so that you could hopefully, stay raw while you're traveling. How many people in here like to travel? All right, most people, great. How many people have a challenge, have a hard time staying raw while they're traveling because they're out of their comfort zone with their house, with their juicers, with their dehydrators, or with anything, because all you have with you is a bag, right? A lot of people. All right. So the one thing I found that is the most important thing to change is your mindset, right? So the way you think is more important than any gadget you'll bring with you to stay raw, right? When I used to travel with my parents, we'd go down to see my grandma. She lived in Monterey, and we'd drive down maybe halfway. We'd stop in Santa Cruz or San Jose, and we'd get a hotel for the night. And at that point, we'd stay at the hotel, and we'd always eat at the restaurant at the hotel. So it's like we're almost programmed. That's what our parents did. So that's what we did. That's what we're taught. So like when we travel, we're used to traveling and staying at a hotel, and then eating at a restaurant, whether it's on the premises or off. If there's a raw food restaurant in the area when you travel, you'll probably go stay somewhere and scope the area for raw food restaurants and eat there. Because we're still programmed to eat at restaurants, but we need to change and break out of that mindset. We need to I don't know, coin a term, think like a raw foodist. Or think like John would think. Next time you're traveling, what would John do? If you're in the middle of Las Vegas and you don't have anything to eat, what would you do? So for me, when I'm traveling, eating out doesn't mean eating at restaurants at the hotel. I think I had to do that maybe once. I don't know. But for me, it means finding what's in nature, what's available. That's what we would do naturally. Eating off fruit trees. When I was in Cyprus, I was driving around to get to some place I was going to, and I had to pee real bad. So I was like, there's nowhere to pee, and I was like, maybe I was going to stop off at a bush, but then on the highway there's like no trees where I was, and then there's a sign that said, the beach is this way. So I'm like, oh, let's take a detour to the beach. So I drove to the beach, and I was like, I found a cool place to pee, and there was a bar or something, but I just peed outside next to a tree. And as luck would have it, there's a phone booth there, and then next to the phone booth was a huge tree, and it had all these carrot pods on it. I'm like, oh my God, so I got to go pee and found food to eat in nature for free. And it was great. So, you want to look on trees, if you're in a place that's not like a city and there's dandelion greens growing, and it's probably they're safe to eat. It's not like farms everywhere. That's probably great too. You want to look in nature, number one. I mean, that's not always possible in the middle of New York City. So, you want to then go to farmers markets. So, you could plan in advance when you're traveling to see if there's farmers markets corresponding with when you're going to be there, or try to plan your trip when the farmers market's going to get in, be on. So every year I go down to Anaheim for the Natural Products Convention, basically. And I know that their farmers markets in Anaheim is always on Thursdays. So I'll plan my trip to get down there Thursday morning, drive to the farmers market, load up, and then go to my hotel room. Then I'll have a lot of food, basically, for the rest of my trip. You can't eat off fruit trees or farmers markets. Then you want to maybe go to health food stores. There's a lot of Whole Foods, or Whole Paycheck seems to be invading everywhere. And there's always those, or support local community co-ops and other places like that. And of course, if you can't find health food stores, then everybody could always, there's always supermarkets everywhere, even in Tennessee. So I mean, I've been everywhere, and I mean, even in Tennessee, there's supermarkets, and a lot of them may carry one or two organic things, such as carrots and apples, or sometimes bananas. But everywhere there's always a supermarket, and there's certain things at supermarkets that I'll eat that are conventional. I mean, most of the time I eat 95% organic foods, but when I travel, I have to, make some compromises. So, I'll eat non-organic avocados, non-organic pineapples, non-organic mangoes, and papayas. But for apples and oranges and other things like that, I pretty much just won't even eat them. So there's good websites online that tell us about, the 10 most highly pesticide residue containing foods and the 10 least. So I recommend that everybody would check out those lists and maybe eat off, the produce containing the least amount of pesticides. The other things I've had to do before when traveling is I always like to make a huge salad for dinner. So you need to be really resourceful when you're traveling. And, you can't bring big bowls and stuff with you, especially when you're traveling with a carry-on bag like I like to do. So like I'll go to the, one time I was in an Albertsons actually supermarket shopping and getting some, I guess they have like organic lettuce in bags, or sometimes I'll get the hydroponic lettuce and it still has the roots on it, and I'll make a salad with that, but then I want a big bowl to put it in. So I was like walking by the cake department, and the covers that they put on the cakes, are huge, so like the cake won't smush. So I just asked for one of those, and you flip it upside down, and you have a huge bowl, right? So that's a real, good thing to do too. Eating at restaurants are a last choice because you don't have any control of what they're going to serve you. Of course, if you do have to eat at a restaurant, there's a couple restaurants I would, recommend more than others. Such as I like, salad bars, format restaurants like Fresh Choice here in this area, Sweet Tomatoes. There's other ones across the country that usually have big salad bars. I generally still don't even eat at those. Or Mexican restaurants that make things fresh are really good because you can always pretty much get a guacamole and a pico de gallo, and then maybe just have some lettuce, and you can put those two on top of it, and I find that's a pretty good meal for myself. But if you are at a restaurant, there's a couple things you could do to order at a regular restaurant. So one is I call the substitution principle. So say you see a BLT sandwich, right? But you can eat the lettuce and the tomato, but not the bacon. But you see in another, menu item, they have avocados in it. So you can say, well, I would order the BLT, but I don't want any bacon, but I want the avocado. You need to make it really easy for the wait staff to help you, because if you try to sit there like I have before, try to explain what you're doing and you're on a raw food diet and you only eat fruits and vegetables, most of them just don't get it. So you need to be specific with them and ask specific questions and ask them what's on the food and all that stuff. So substitution principle. The other thing that you could learn that I've learned to use, that Dr. Doug Graham, who's going to be speaking here in a little bit, says is my doctor says. So preface whatever you're saying by my doctor says I need to have fresh avocados, lettuce, and grated carrots. Because when the wait person hears my doctor says, in our society the doctor's word is gold. And then they'll make sure it happens, because then they'll think, oh my God, if I feed this person, something, they might go into a seizure or something, or, I don't know, who knows. But so you need to let them know that you're serious. So one of the things I like to do when I'm traveling is, to make traveling easier, I like to travel with some appliances and different things like that.